let's talk about the Camino de Madrid. In this video, we're sharing everything you need to know to walk this route.
We're going to talk about the total distance, how many days it takes, difficulty, popularity, accommodation, all the things. Here's everything you need to know to walk the Camino de Madrid. I'm Sean.
And I'm Lainey. And this is Days We Spend. Let's start with some quick facts about the Camino de Madrid. It starts in Madrid and travels directly north to Sahagún with a total distance of 323 kilometers. In Sahagún, where the route officially ends, you're essentially connecting to the Camino Frances, which is the midpoint of the Camino Frances. So from Sahagún to Santiago is 358 kilometers.
In the municipal albergue in Sahagún, you can pick up a certificate stating your completion of the Camino de Madrid.
How many days does the Camino de Madrid take? It's anywhere from 13 to 14 days. So this is a 2-week Camino. Typically, each stage will be 23 to 25 kilometers.
That's on average. There's some long days that you can't avoid, which we'll talk about later.
Camino de Madrid is a solid medium difficulty Camino. There's one day of pretty decent climbing. There's a few days where you're quite far from services. You'll have to carry a little bit more weight, like food and water. This is a Camino that you can't just wing it. There's nothing excruciatingly difficult. There's no super punishing days.
Most of it's very flat, and I'd say that 90% of the walking is done on packed earth or on sand. So you're really avoiding a lot of asphalt on this route, which means it's really nice on your joints, which is partially why we put it in the medium category. But it's not an easy route because of the distances between towns and services. And because of that, you really need to be prepared for the days rather than just going out from the albergue and just kind of seeing what happens. Some history and background of the Camino de Madrid. This is a really old route, and a lot of the routes of the paths you're walking are actually Roman or pre-Roman. It's a mix of historical routes used by the Celts, the Visigoths, the Arabs, day laborers from Galicia who were traveling to work the fields on the Meseta, and most importantly, it was used as a transhumancia route to move sheep and cattle to different pastures.
So it's been well trodden for centuries. It's been a Camino. It's been a working pathway for the people that live in the area. And there's evidence of pilgrims walking this route as early as the 12th century. Join them and join the tradition.
Because it's such a historical route, there's tons of really amazing things to see on this route. So let's talk about the highlights. We have 2 major cities that you are walking through on the Camino de Madrid. The first one is, of course, Madrid, which is incredible. And I think walking through the city as part of the pilgrimage route is a great way to see it.
When you leave Madrid, you actually walk through a large chunk of the city if you leave from the traditional starting point, which is the Plaza de Santiago. So that's going to lead you north out of the city through a bunch of different neighborhoods that maybe you wouldn't see even if you've been to visit Madrid.
And for how large Madrid is, you'd be surprised that there's only 12 kilometers of asphalt and then you're in the countryside, like immediately.
That dividing line when you go from city to country is actually really cool. Yeah. And we felt like, we're getting out there.
The other major city you're walking through is Segovia, which is incredible. We took a 0 day in Segovia because it's such an incredible place to visit. Now, this actually leads us into historical landmarks that you get to see on the Camino de Madrid. So many of them are in Segovia. There's a Roman aqueduct.
The Roman aqueduct is like the symbol of the city. You'll see it when you walk in. They were still using it in 1976 to carry water to the city.
There's also a beautiful Cathedral of Segovia and the Alcázar de Segovia, which is a big fortress which is built on a cliff overlooking the land you're going to be walking through.
The Alcázar is a really interesting bit of history from when the Moors were ruling over this part of Spain.
On this route, you're also going to see the Mendoza Castle Palace in Manzanares El Real. There's a beautiful cloister in the old monastery of Santa Maria la Real de Nieva with sculpted capitals that talk about medieval life. There's Gothic Mudéjar style castle in Coca. There's also another castle in Simancas. There's a beautiful Mozarabic church and ossuary in Wamba called the Santa Maria Church. You're going to walk by the Canal de Castilla. You can also tour the palace in Grajal de Campos and stay in the albergue, which is in the old dungeons. For the length of this route, there's so many incredible things to see, and we didn't even mention what you can see in Madrid.
As far as natural beauty, you're going to walk through the foothills and then eventually go through the Fuenfría Pass of the Sierra de Guadaramas, which is a very tall mountain range. It is actually the highest point of any Camino. It happens here on the Camino de Madrid. That's my favorite fact about the Camino de Madrid.
In continental Spain.
Continental Spain's highest point of any Camino, higher than the Pyrenees, higher than Osebredo. This is the top.
We're going to walk through the Tierra de Pinares, which are pine forests used for resin extraction. And then finally, the Tierra de Campos, which is the most classic meseta feel with those wide open spaces and big skies. On the Camino de Madrid, here's some local cuisine you shouldn't miss. Well, there's tons of stuff in Madrid, so eat all the things. We recommend getting some churros con chocolate for breakfast on your way out of Madrid.
It's a good way to start the day.
You're walking through the wine region of the Ribera del Duero, so make sure you get some of that local wine and don't miss the delicious pastries in Medina de Rio Seco.
This is my favorite part of the Camino de Madrid because it's easy to get there. Most international flights land in Madrid. Madrid is the hub of the high-speed rail network in Spain. So even if you're coming from somewhere else in Spain, it's easy to get to Madrid and you can start right when you land.
If you aren't continuing your Camino from Sahagún to get back to Madrid or somewhere else, you can take a train or a bus to León and then connect to the different high-speed rails from there. Where can you get the Pilgrim credential for this Camino? When you arrive in Madrid, visit the Church of Santiago and San Juan Bautista in the Plaza de Santiago. From there, there's a door in the back and you can pick up your credential. They have weird opening hours, so make sure you check that ahead of time because they close in the middle of the day.
Guidebooks and apps for the route. Camino de Madrid is very well covered by granze.com. That's a Spanish language website. Has all the details that you need for the Camino de Madrid. They also have a map app.
If you don't want to use something that's in Spanish that you need a translator for, you can also use the Buen Camino app for the map only. It's still in production, so there's no information though on albergues and like details about the stages.
The accommodation on the Camino de Madrid is interesting. There are albergues and municipals along the way, but it's not as heavily traveled as some of the other popular routes. So the availability of these places fluctuates depending on the time of year and availability. We had to call ahead the entire time, every single time we wanted to stay somewhere, even municipals, which are supposed to be open all the time.
And donativos.
Yeah, we had to call ahead and confirm. And several times, either the donativo we wanted to stay at wasn't open, or the person was like, oh, okay, I'll come special to let you in because you're the only people walking it. Don't just assume that things will be open because you read it online. This is a Camino where you have to call, you have to confirm, and you have to double check literally every single night of accommodation, especially once you get a little bit further away from Madrid and there's fewer options.
According to Granze, this route is dying, which means that municipal albergues are closing, especially post-COVID, because there's a lack of demand. We want to bring back that demand. It's an amazing route, and as long as people stay in municipal albergues, they will be open. So we always stayed in the municipal albergues when we had a choice, except for one night, I think we chose a private place.
And we had really great experiences.
Actually, watch our vlogs. There's one place we don't recommend to stay, and you can stay in the other ones around it and the towns near it that are much better. Some of the towns have casa rurals or pensiones or like small hotels, so you can get private accommodation in many of the places, but not all of the places. There's also a couple options to stay in hostels, which are not only for pilgrims, and those do require a prior reservation because some of these areas, especially near the Sierra de Guadarrama, are really popular for rock climbing and for like youth groups doing hiking.
We stayed at a hostel and we got a private room, which was great, but we were the only people over the age of 15.
So are there long and short day options? Yes and no. Some of the times there are options to do 15-kilometer days, and some of the times you have no option but to walk 27 kilometers is your only choice. The really long day is when you're walking from Cercedilla, and if you don't want to go all the way to Segovia, you have to take an alternate route. And again, that has a minimum though of 26 kilometers with no services.
How to find accommodation. Use granze.com. And then you can talk to the hospitaleros or people who run the pensions on WhatsApp, or use booking.com directly to make your reservations. But like we said, call and confirm day of just to make sure they're open.
Access to services. So how easy is it to find what you need on this route?
Like coffee.
On average, there's 9.2 kilometers between towns. But again, it's a very rural Camino. So that doesn't always mean 9.2 between.
You shouldn't plan your trip based on averages. Take a look at the route because there are a few long days.
There are 3 sections specifically that have really long stretches of nothing, as we say, meaning no services. There's 27 kilometers to Segovia. There is 17.3 kilometers to Alcazaren and another 15.9 kilometers to Valdestillas. And just because you reach a town doesn't mean things are open in that town once you get there.
For context, the big scary long day on the Camino Frances on the Meseta from Carrion de los Condes is 17 kilometers. So there's 3 Carrion de los Condes days on the Camino de Madrid.
Is a picnic required on this route? Absolutely, yes, almost every day.
Picnics required every day. You should always have food that you can eat in case things are closed. That's just a Camino tip from your friends, Sean and Lainey. Have a thing of tuna, have a roll of bread, have a bunch of stuff that you can eat. Because it's scary out there, pilgrims.
How many shops and bars are available in towns? You're going through really rural towns on the Meseta, and sometimes the bar is just not open. It's not even that it's the wrong time of day. You're like, it's 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. Yeah. They're just not open.
Or the albergue just doesn't have like, if you want to cook dinner, it's just got a microwave. And then you go to the bodega to buy microwavable stuff, and they only have cold cuts. It's a little bit of a round peg square hole sometimes, and you're going to have to be a little creative with what you eat for dinner.
And a little bit flexible.
Flexible and creative. The Camino de Madrid.
Because information you see online is not always reliable.
But you're not going to die out there. It's going to be great.
So you aren't going to die out there because pharmacies are available about every 4 to 5 days. Again, they might be open, but if you really needed something, you can just wait until they open.
The Camino de Madrid. Don't die out there. Is there bag transfer or luggage services? No. That's part of why this Camino is not very well traveled, which means unlike the Frances or other Caminos, you will not have bag transfers. So you're going to carry what you need every day. Don't die out there.
Is taxi service available? Sometimes.
There are always taxis available, but you might have to work a little bit harder or wait a little bit longer in some towns. Remember that a day of walking is usually a 5-minute drive. So if there's a major town behind you, you can always get a cab from there.
Yeah, the only problem is that sometimes you're in very rural areas and there's a lack of cell service occasionally on this route.
Bring food and don't die out there. When is the best time to walk the Camino de Madrid? It depends.
It's really hard to gauge the number of pilgrims that actually walk this route because there's conflicting data. Not all of the pilgrims go all the way to Santiago, like we didn't.
We stopped in Sahagún.
So the information from the pilgrim office in Santiago is not necessarily correct about how many people walk the Camino de Madrid.
Can't trust it. This might be a great Camino to bike if that's something that you're interested in. We saw a lot of people on bikes.
I mean, a lot.
We saw more than one person on a bike.
Yes. And it's also hard to know the number of people because some pilgrims just walk from Madrid to Segovia because it's a really nice 3-day walk, or some people start in Segovia to avoid the mountains and then go from there. So the church in Madrid that issues the credentials, they say they issue a lot of credentials every year, but we didn't see the numbers to support their data.
So our experience in September, we saw one woman for a few days, and then we saw 2 people and a few bikes, and then we stayed by ourselves a bunch, and then we got to Sahagún, and we're like, so many people. The weather was a little bit bad at the end of our Camino, which might have scared people off, and it was on the tail end of the season in late September. In my opinion, it was an incredibly solitary Camino.
And so that's something about crowds. From what we talked to hospitaleros and some of the data online, it shows that a lot of people walk this route during Holy Week, Semana Santa, which could be in either March or April. Also, a lot of people do this route in June because it's just really nice weather, apparently, that time of year.
So the weather on the Camino de Madrid is very important. Like we said, you're going through the highest point in any Camino, which means if you walk it in late fall or winter, there's a really good chance that you're going to get snow or just bad weather. So please check the weather. There can be freak storms even in late summer. You're going through a very high pass. Check the weather, be safe, don't die out there. But that also means, again, like Lainey said, A lot of people walk this in summer. Even though you have a stretch of Meseta, it's typically very nice to walk this in June.
That's why it's early summer, because the Meseta can be scorching hot if you're walking it in the middle of the summer, and there's some parts with no shade. But also in winter, this Meseta is freezing. It's like driving winds. There's nothing to break that wind. And we experienced a little bit of that on our last few days. Accommodation is generally available from March to October. Some places are open year round, but there's no guarantee of that. Alternatives and variants on the Camino de Madrid. There's only a few choices for this one to vary up the route. And one of them is you can shorten the day from Cercedilla to Segovia. And instead of walking 30 kilometers in one day, you can do 2 days. But you have to go all the way around a different area of the mountain range. You can go and stay at another town called La Granja de San Ildefonso.
We talked to a couple that had stayed there and they had a lovely time. So it's definitely an option if that far of a day is scaring you.
It's still a 26-kilometer day instead of 30. If that's too much for you or the weather is snowing, some people skip this by train. Another option is to walk to the monastery in La Espina. After leaving Peñaflor de Hornilla, this adds 9.5 kilometers to your route. And because we were doing this during hurricane, we didn't do this alternative. There's a couple ways you can get out of Madrid and essentially meet up in the Plaza de Castilla. You can stick to the original route, which is what we did, or some people recommend to walk around and up a different street, and so you can pass by all the monuments.
There's one last option if accommodation in the first couple of days isn't to your liking or it's full. Some people will walk the section of the day that they feel comfortable walking, and then they'll take the local commuter train back to Madrid to stay the night. And then in the morning, you take the commuter train out. It's an interesting way to approach the Camino, and it's a really important resource to know about if you're not happy with the accommodation or something's full. We didn't do it, but we know that it is an option, and you can explore that.
Especially Tres Cantos that first night. It's just a dormitory city. There's not a lot there. So if you get there early and they're like, wow, I would have rather gone and do more sightseeing in Madrid, you could just take the train.
That's actually a really good point. If you're only in Spain for a few weeks, why not enjoy Madrid for one more night? Take the train back. It's like a 15-minute ride. That's always the most depressing part is you walk all day and you're like all sweaty and tired, and then you get in a car or a train and you're like, how am I back already?
Yeah, we got to Tres Cantos so early too, and we didn't expect that because the walk was easy and lovely. And then we were like, what do we do all afternoon in Tres Cantos? Yeah. I don't know, because there's nothing there.
So that's really interesting. You could do 2 nights in the same hotel, and then like almost it's like bag transit, like leave your stuff, some of your stuff there.
Yeah, people
and
do
then
that.
Go up and then come back and like your sleeping bag is, or your, man, that'd be so great. Do that. Don't do what we did. Do that. So that is our quick guide to the Camino de Madrid. Personally, for me, it's one of my top 3 Caminos. I absolutely loved the scenery, Segovia, the cities, the mountains. I'm a big Meseta guy, so that last couple of days on the Meseta was excellent.
If you want more information on the Camino de Madrid, you can watch our vlog series, and we also have some packing lists because I did a really big challenge and packed like super ultralight for this one. You don't have to do that. You can just use one of my other main basic packing lists for this. It
was really impressive. She wore a running vest as her bag.
It was great, but I only recommend it if you're a very experienced pilgrim.
Don't die out.
Yeah, that.
Please walk the Camino de Madrid. It's fantastic. We've never said this before. It's one of the few routes that needs more pilgrims.
Do it. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
And you can click the join button down there if you want to become a member. Come be part of the Days We Friend community.
You can also follow us on Instagram. Every time we walk a Camino, we post daily updates and stories as, some fun things.
Much more real-time, unfiltered silliness of us walking the Camino. I think we might be too silly.
Yeah, maybe some people say we're too silly. I don't care. I like being silly. So, buen Camino, pilgrims. Enjoy your Camino de Madrid.